Und ganz besonders freue ich mich auch, dass Massimo Preite heute bei uns ist, der einerseits Vertreter des ERIH-Boards ist, die auf die gute Zusammenarbeit habe ich jetzt, glaube ich, hinreichend oft hingewiesen, der aber in Italien auch, denke ich mal, als ein Nestor einerseits der Themen der Industriekultur, andererseits aber auch der Themen des Reuse eine ganz, ganz wichtige Rolle spielt. Er hat an der Universität in Florenz Architektur unterrichtet, tut das noch an der Universität Padua, soweit ich weiß. Ist, wie gesagt, Mitglied im ERIH-Board und bei TICI, also in vielen internationalen Organisationen, auch als hoch angesehener Fachmann vertreten. Wir haben uns tatsächlich auch hier kennengelernt bei einer ERIH-Konferenz im Jahr 2019. Da erinnere ich mich auch sehr gerne daran. Also ich freue mich, dass gerade Sie beide es sind, die uns jetzt mit zwei kurzen, knackigen Impulsen in die Veranstaltung einführen werden und rechne auf Ihre hohe Aufmerksamkeit. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for your kind invitation to participate in this 10th Forum for Industrial Heritage and Society. I thank you because it seems to me to be an important opportunity to analyze projects for the reuse of industrial heritage. The impulse I can bring concerns the reconversion of industrial sites in Italy. I will refer to some experiences that, although not comparable with those occurred in the Berlin-Brandenburg metropolitan region, can nevertheless show useful points of interest for our discussion. The gallery of examples I want to present is part of a broader research on the reuse of the Italian industrial heritage in the last 30 years. Time is short, so I can only summarize the conclusions more suitable to answer some of the questions this forum intends to deal with. Not all of them, but three in particular. Let's begin with what interaction between reuse and local planning. The Italian cities highlight a large variety of models. The first is that of Turin, where, following the industrialization, the reuse of industrial heritage came up for the first time in Italy. The land use plan, drawn up in the 1990s, envisaged a post-industrial future for the former car city and, as a result, the cancellation of industrial testimonies and their replacement with new architectures. It was the success of the Lingotto operation that led the administration to correct these urban planning forecasts and save not few industrial buildings that the plan destined for demolition. Among them, I would just like to mention the Great Repair Workshops, OGR, which has now become an international center of creativity and innovation. Turin is therefore the example of an industrial heritage recovery that has been conducted against the plan's forecasts. An opposite interaction was that of the regeneration of Testaccio Ostiense. An opposite interaction was that of the regeneration of Testaccio Ostiense, the industrial district born in Rome in the early 20th century. The reuse of the heritage in this case does not concern factories, but rather plants and infrastructures typical of the industrial heritage. The recovery The recovery of Slaughterhouse as a city of the arts, the slide is missing, grouping a new university, the Academy of Fine Arts and the Museum of Contemporary Art, were carried out within the framework of a detailed urban plan drawn up by the Capitoline administration, an example, therefore, of consistency and integration between planning and rehabilitation. Last but not least, there is the regeneration of Tortona district in Milano, where the old factories have been converted into headquarters of famous fashion designs, such as Fendi, Zegna, and Armani. The redevelopment of the area was implemented, therefore, through individual, non-agreed initiatives promoted by private actors, which nevertheless succeeded in giving the area as a highly recognizable image, despite the absence of any upstream planning action. Such different outcomes demonstrate that urban regeneration through the industrial heritage requires highly innovative forms of governance with respect to traditional models of regulating urban transformation. With the reference to the second question, are the conflicts between a treatment in conformity with the preservation order and the intended forms of use? Italian experiences reveal a great variety of design strategies for adapting disused industrial sites to new functions. In each of them, there is always a potential conflict between preservation and transformation. Simplifying to utmost, I would speak of at least three strategies. The first is the one most in line with the principles of restoration, in which, although the function changes, the original form and materials of the industrial building remain unchanged. In the following reconversion, as those of the former military bakery in Verona into a university, the Campolmi textile factory in Prato into a library and a textile museum, and the railways workshops in Naples into the National Railway Museum. The adaptation has mainly concerned the new use of the interior space, keeping form and matter largely intact. A second strategy is one in which the outline of the building remains unchanged, but which allows for extensive substitutions of the original materials and profound modifications of the interior space. In the conversion of the former sugar refinery into an auditorium in Parma, the end wall was replaced with a large glass wall. In the Mecfond plant in Naples, the entire original wall perimeter was replaced with a new glass walls ensuring maximum transparency. Very often, the interior space suffers radical transformation with the insertion of new architectural volume, such as the Golinelli Foundation in Bologna, or the new technological pole created in the former Hangar 19 of the mechanics workshops in Reggio Emilia. In many of these cases, the intervention has significantly altered the original character of the buildings. However, it makes itself acceptable in many cases, taking into account the modest patrimonial value of the industrial buildings interested by the transformation. Anyway, the question remains open. regarding the limits within which transformations must be contained so as not to compromise the identity of the buildings. Finally, the last strategy is one that adds to the previous two a hybrid approach that integrates reuse and new construction. Only two examples. The Prada Foundation in Milano, following a project by Rem Koolhaas, which, in addition to reusing the buildings of an old distillery, involved the densification of 3 spaces with the insertion of new architectures. And the Lavazza Crowd, a new multifunctional complex built in Turin on an area belonging to the Enel Electricity Company. Lavazza Crowd provides an interesting example of how a large disused industrial area has been regenerated through a transformation project which seems to answer the first question of this forum, that is, how old and new history of the site can be related to each other. In fact, a strong narrative thread exists between the history of the Lavazza family, displayed in the company museum, set up inside the former electric transformers building, and the headquarters of the current Lavazza company, located inside the new cloud-shaped building. The narrative continuity between past and present is indisputable. Finally, the last question that cannot be avoided is what role do sustainability criteria play in the development goals? Indeed, many people today are questioning the contribution that the recovery of industrial heritage can make to the fight against climate change. By now, no one disputes the fact that the recycling of disused factories through the extension of their life cycle should be encouraged as much as possible, as it fulfills the principles of the circular economy. This objective is increasingly accompanied by that of energy saving, which can be achieved by the improvement of the bioclimatic efficiency of the converted buildings. Some of the most common expedients in Italian experiences include the removal of parts of the roof to create open spaces inside the structure, capable of capturing direct ventilation and lighting, as was done in the recovery of Hangar 18 on the mechanics workshops as a new technological park. Another example is the reuse of Morandi brick kiln in Padua, the central part of which was emptied to create a garden patio where only the chimney and the ruins of some pillars remain. Thanks to the garden, the offices facing inside benefit from direct ventilation and lighting. Third and last example is the reconversion of this former metallurgical factory named La Forgiatura and located in Milan, through an intervention of partial deconstruction of relevant parts of the old structure, highlighted in yellow in the slide. Internal courtyards and new walkways were created. I have illustrated these last 3 cases as example of the structural alterations made in the name of energy saving. They prove that the reuse of industrial buildings in strict accordance with the green transition guidelines can impose a not insignificant price in terms of integrity. I would like to conclude by observing that while in the past the adaptive reuse was called upon to solve a 2-variable equation, that is, the protection of the building and its functional reuse, today A third variable is added, that of energy efficiency, which is often attainable through a sacrifice, sometimes even a significant one, of the value of integrity. This is an issue that deserves wide reflection, and I believe that this forum is an excellent opportunity to begin to do so. Many thanks for your attention.